falls asleep on my chest. I'm so in love, even though we just met. Got no clue what I should do next. We'll get it wrong, we'll get it right. Whole lot of tears, we both have to cry. You'll learn to run, I'll learn to let go. Years will go fast, nights will go slow. Lord knows the best thing that I'll ever do will be growing up praising you.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I say, would it be a sin? Oh, if I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. But so
6 in the morning, hands are shaking, half ready, half scared to death. Hand me the world wrapped in a pink blanket. The world falls asleep on my chest.
these memories will stay with me.
Well, I must admit it, I would marry you in an instant. Damn your wife, I'd be your mistress just to have you around. But I was late for this, late for that, late for the love of my life. And when I die alone, when I die alone, die I'll be on time. And while the church discouraged any lust that burned within me, yes, my flesh, it was was my currency, but I held true. So I drive a taxi, and the traffic distracts me from the strangers in my backseat. They remind me of you, but I was late.
I had my baby 18 days ago, so let's share the birth story. Honestly, this might be one big ramble, but I'm gonna try and make it as straightforward as possible. Going back to probably the beginning of September, I have been so worried about when the baby was gonna come and just so stressed if it was gonna be a day that I was at work or a day that my husband was out of town. I was always so stressed about when I was gonna go into labor. One day, my husband texted me and he said, I know when the baby's gonna be born. And I was like, you do? Please share. So my husband's grandfather passed away a year ago on September 15th. So my husband said that one day he had a very, very strong feeling that the baby was going to be born at September 15th. September 15th just sounded right, and it would be so convenient. My last day of work was going to be the 13th, and my husband's last day of work was the 14th, so the 15th just made sense. It's also 2 p.m., and I just realized I have not brushed my teeth for the day. So anyways, September 15th comes, and I literally have no signs of labor. I don't have any contractions, I'm not crampy, literally nothing. We went to church that day and we came home, and we were both so determined that this baby was coming on the 15th. So we went on like a 10-mile walk. I was doing squats. I pulled out the breast pumps for like an hour. I was doing everything I possibly could to induce labor that day. So honestly, after that point, when I still had no signs of labor, we were both really disappointed, and we laid down to go to bed that night, and it was like around 10:30 p.m. we were laying down at night, and I started to have contractions, which I guess I should add that while we were doing the walk and while I was doing squats and all that kind of stuff, I was having contractions. They just were never consistent. So anyways, around like 11 o'clock at night, we were going to bed, and we were both just really sad, disappointed, but honestly just confused, because we both felt so strongly that was going to be the day the baby was born. Anyways, as I was laying down to go to bed, we were both just kind of scrolling on our phones, just talking or whatever, and the contractions ended up coming back. They were pretty irregular during the day, and then ended up just like going away for hours. So I was like, whatever, it's not happening. But as I was laying down to go to bed, the contractions did come back, and they were so much stronger. Like, I told my husband, like, wait a minute, like, they just felt different, and with all of the things we had been doing to induce labor, like, it would only make sense if they were real, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of tried to fall asleep, because I knew that, like, oh, if they're real contractions, you won't be able to sleep through them. Basically, they'll be that painful. And they just kept getting more and more painful as time went on. I probably laid in bed for like 2 hours, and they were getting more painful and closer together. So our plan with James was that my sister-in-law lives close by, and our plan with James always was that she was going to come stay at the house, or we would take him over to her house. So I called her and I said, hey, like, it was like midnight at this point. I just told her, hey, maybe come sleep at the house tonight, just in case we end up needing to go to the hospital at like 3 a.m. or whatever. So like an hour goes by the time my sister-in-law finally gets to the house. And at that point I was like, no, we just gotta go. Like, this is real. These are so painful. I couldn't breathe through them. I couldn't talk through them. My husband was trying to like joke with me to try and like distract me from the contractions, and I couldn't even function, couldn't focus on anything, couldn't laugh about anything. So we got to the hospital around 1 a.m. and random, funny coincidence, whatever, we got to the hospital, and the nurse was actually my husband's second cousin. So by the time they get us checked into the room, I finished all the paperwork and stuff like that. They ended up finally checking me, and I was dilated to a 5. At my last doctor's appointment, I was at a 2, I think. They told me that, like, since I was like planning for a VBAC, and this is technically like my first birth, and so they were like, don't be surprised if this takes a long time. Like, don't plan on this being a really fast labor. Technically it's your body's first birth, so it can take like hours and hours. So they asked me if I wanted an epidural, and I was like, well, like, should I already or should I wait? Like, I don't know if this is gonna take forever. I don't want to be confined to the bed. They ended up just telling me, like, or not really telling me, but kind of convincing me, like, no, if you want the epidural, like, do it now, basically. So maybe like an hour goes by, I get the epidural, which was magical. That thing, seriously magical. I get the epidural around like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they were like, okay, try and get some rest, which I don't know how I was gonna get any rest, because they laid me on my, don't mind my matching outfit, but they laid me on my side and they put one of my legs up in the stirrups. So I'm literally laying on my side with my leg way up in the air, and they're like, yeah, try and get some rest. The most uncomfortable position ever. Doctor comes in around 4 or 5 in the morning, around the nurse's shift change, and at this point my water had not broken, so they said that if they were going to check me again and they were going to break my water, and they had to place the internal monitor. I guess if you're trying for a VBAC, you got more risk for uterine rupture, so they have to do an internal catheter. No, internal monitor, not catheter. Anyways, around 5 o'clock in the morning, they come in and check me, and I was already at a 9.5, they said. So they're like, whoa, no point of like putting in the monitor or anything like that. We'll just break your water, and we're ready to go. I did practice pushes with the nurse for maybe 15 or so minutes. Then the doctor came in, and 2 contractions later, baby was born. So honestly, it was such a fast experience. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I've just heard so many crazy stories and horrible stories about like epidurals not taking effect and just horror stories basically. So that's what I was so stressed about. But seriously, the most peaceful, pleasant, wonderful experience ever. So baby was born at 6:38 on September 16th, 6:38 in the morning on September 16th. Baby was and is completely and 100% healthy. No issues, no problems, no additional monitoring needed. Everything was great. I did have an internal 2nd-degree tear, which even at this point, about 3 weeks postpartum, like I feel pretty much like, I would say 90% back to normal. I am 3 weeks postpartum from a VBAC delivery, and I've had so many people ask me if I've preferred the VBAC or the C-section, so I'm going to tell you about it. I honestly couldn't tell you which one I preferred. They have so many different pros and cons. Of having a C-section, for me, it was planned C-section because my son was breached, so I didn't have any added stress about not knowing when I was going to go into labor. With my VBAC delivery, I was fully planning on being in labor for like 10-12 hours. That's what they told me to expect, but from start to finish, it was like 5 hours. Now, recovery-wise, this is where it gets very different. After having my VBAC, it was like impossible to sit down. I had a 2nd-degree internal tear, and I'm pretty sure I had some pretty good hemorrhoids afterwards. So I think that's why it was so painful to sit down. I seriously carried on like a donut waffle thing, like for weeks. After my C-section, for several days afterwards, I had an ice pack always on my stomach because like my stitches hurt so bad. And obviously after my C-section, I just couldn't sit up on my own for several weeks, I feel like. I would say overall, I probably would prefer the VBAC over the C-section. I mean, such different types of deliveries. It was a totally different experience. But I loved feeling more in control with the VBAC and not just strapped down to a table.